I don't know much about writing theme songs, but this one's pretty good. Oh, don't you agree? Now if you will do me the kindest courtesy and stop what you're doing to sing with me. I love me. It shouldn't be hard to say I love me. I think I'll say it every day. I love me. I'll yell it early and late. I love me. Oh, and let's lose some weight. Ba-da-da-da.
Hey everyone, I'm Leonard Woo Stevens, and this is Weight Loss Love Gain. Today is going to be a bit different. We're going to breeze through diet and exercise real quick, and then mostly focus on the loving ourselves aspect of the work we're doing. And then I am going to share a symbol of that love with you. Most of today's video is going to be the post-credit scene. So take that as a, foreshadowing. Anyway, so where are we? We are continuing to build momentum until we're sick of it. We might already be sick of it, but we're continuing to build momentum. And the reason that we're building momentum, what we're doing to build momentum, is each week we're doing the minimum it takes to create a win for us the following week. And in doing that, we're building momentum. We're building a routine. We're building a habit. Much like brushing your teeth, I talked about this last week, diet and exercise for us should be just something we do to take care of ourselves. And as we do that, as we take better care of ourselves, as we see it as taking care of ourselves and not just, I just diet and exercise so I look, a certain way, or whatever other motivation you have, when we do it to care for ourselves, we commit to ourselves, that starts to build a foundation upon which a relationship of trust with ourselves can be built. So and foundations, I don't know anything about building. I'm going to assume a foundation takes a long time to build. I mean, it holds up the whole house. So anyway, we're going to keep building momentum. How did the diet go this week? Diet went good. I lost, 2.2 pounds, I think. So great. I'm down to 280.2. So for those of you who are keeping track at home, in the last 5 weeks, I've lost 7.5 pounds, and that's about 1.5 pounds per week, which is right where I want to be, 1 to 2 pounds a week. So that's fantastic. I'm going to start continue to alter my diet a little bit just as we go, but nothing major. Exercise went the best it's been, and for exercise I walked to vote, but then other than that, right outside my door is the stairwell for the fire escape or the fire exit, and so I was avoiding that because you think fire escape, you kind of have a mental block that it's there because you're not supposed to go out the fire door, but it's not alarmed, it's just a staircase, and it puts me right next to my car. So instead of a short walk to the elevator and then a short walk to my car, I'm walking down 10 flights of stairs whenever I go downstairs. So if I go downstairs 2-3 times a day, I've already been down the stairs 3 times a day for laundry. So that's extra calories I'm burning, and eventually I can start going up the stairs. Not yet though, let's not push it. So I'm happy with where I am on diet and exercise, okay? All right, I didn't lie. Now we're getting to the post-credit scene. I put the credits there above me. You might have to zoom in to see them because they're awesome. So now we're in the post-credit scene, and this handsome feller, that's Blueberry. Here, let me get him and introduce you guys. So this is Blueberry. He's a dragon. We're friends. He lives here with me. So he's pretty shy, but he wanted to hear the story today, so I brought him out. So a little bit of context. I feel deeply that my identity as a person is a storyteller, mostly through the written word, as it were. And after law school, I wrote some stories, roughly 45 of them, but I hand wrote them. And when I got my first law job, my plan was to type up these stories as quickly as possible and then leave law and go on to a career of writing and storytelling. That didn't really happen. Law kind of subsumed my life, took it over, and I only to date have 30 stories written. But this past Friday, thanks to everyone's encouragement and the encouragement of some specific individuals more than others, you know who you are, thank you, I typed up a story. And I'm going to share that story with you now. And I'm not sharing it for critique or even accolades. Really the quality of this, I think it's okay. Obviously, I wrote it. And I hope you think it's okay too. I hope it's enjoyable to listen to. It is, trust me. But it's more than that at this point in my life. It's a symbol of the love that is growing, my love that is growing for myself. So the last time I typed up a story was 2 years ago. So this is the first time in 2 years that I've typed up a story. And it comes in a season of change, and I'm happy. So I feel like a lot of good things are happening right now, and I think this story is one of those fruits. And so, join with me as we taste that fruit. The story is called A Sugar Mountain by Leonard Wu Stevens. A boy sat in the pale kitchen light, eating cereal out of a blue bowl. The bowl was ceramic and had several chips around the rim where clumsy hands had dropped the bowl while washing it. This did not bother the boy, as boys are not often bothered by the appearance of things until they are men. The boy chomped slowly at his cereal. The kitchen was quite small. There was an oven and a stove next to a counter, beneath which were drawers that held the silverware. Then a sink, complete with drippy faucet that dripped no matter how tight it was tightened. Next to the sink was a broken dishwasher, broken because it left a red, rusty residue on dishes it washed. The counter curved in an L and held a microwave before ending and giving way to an old, large refrigerator. It was in the crook of the L that the boy sat and ate his cereal, bowl atop the broken dishwasher. The countertop was filthy. Sugarier liquids had long since dried, leaving little droplets of stickiness behind that gathered all sorts of dirt. Crumbs went forth from the toaster as an advancing army, and splotches of brown dotted the area around the coffee maker. But all that failed to grip the boy's attention. He sat on the stool, ate his cereal, and occasionally sipped from his mug that accompanied his meal. I believe that it was apple juice, but these things can be quite difficult to ascertain. In fact, the boy's attention was not gripped by anything that morning. Most mornings, he would turn slightly to the left, hold his bowl in one hand, off of the counter, and watch the sun cross his kitchen window. Unfortunately, daylight savings time had come, and the sun did not meet the window until much later in the day than when the boy ate his breakfast. In fact, it was early enough to still be quite dark outside. So the boy sat, looking straight ahead at the faded teal-green wall, and thought of nothing. Occasionally, a fruit fly would fritter by and some attention was paid to swat at it, but then the nothing-mindedness returned. If the boy had been looking out the window and the sun had been out, he might have seen a long shadow stretch across his porch. Had he any thought in his head, besides the occasional annoyance with a fly, he might have noticed the screen door slowly and silently open. But he wasn't looking or thinking. He just sat. Knock, knock, knock! Suddenly shaken from his mindless staring at the teal-green wall, the boy's eyes darted into the door and his head swiveled on his neck to see who was there. If the sun had been out, he might have just caught a long shadow quickly fleeing his porch. Slam! The screen door returned to its closed position and let everyone in the house know about it. "Don't let the screen door slam!" roared an adult voice before disappearing back into the silence of the morning. Curious, though surprisingly not alarmed, the boy left his cereal for a moment, slid off his stool, and padded across the kitchen in socked feet to the door. Plunk! The deadbolt retracted into the kitchen door. Swish, swish, clink! The door chain slid off its tracks and fell next to the door, gently swaying back and forth. The knob turned and the door opened. Cold morning air rushed into the kitchen, sending shivers down the boy's spine and gently rattling the kitchen door and its window. The boy saw nothing that his young imagination had dreamed up in the short walk from stool to door. Not disappointed, but not satisfied either, the boy went to relock the kitchen door. But then he saw something. It was a small rectangular packet, white in color. It had 5 familiar letters on it: S-U-G-A-R. The boy stooped down and picked up the sugar packet. The sun sent a singular beam across the wooden planks of the boy's porch, and the boy knew that he must start getting ready, or he would risk missing the bus to school. He was intrigued, though, by the sugar packet. He unlatched the screen door and stuck his head out. Looking to the right and the left, he called out, "Hello? Hello? Hello, is anybody out there? Why did you leave a sugar packet on my porch? Hello?" There was no response. The boy relatched the screen door and rebolted and rechained the kitchen door. Turning from the door and returning back to his stool, the boy turned the sugar packet delicately over and over in his hands. No thing is handled more delicately than those things which are mysterious to young boys and fall into those boys' hands. Aside from the black lettering on the white packet, there were no markings, no nutritional information, no manufacturer's name, not even a company's slogan. Except for the S, U, G, A, and R, it was a packet of mystery. The boy felt the packet, pressing it between his forefinger and thumb. It felt like sugar. Grasping one end of the packet, he gave it 2 good shakes to send all the supposed sugar to one end of the packet and ripped open the other end. Closing one eye and peering in with the other, the boy saw, white as the driven snow, sugar. He licked his pinky finger and stuck it in the packet. He removed his pinky, which was now capped with an even coating of sugar. Almost without fear, and definitely without thought, the boy's pinky finger found itself plunged into the wet darkness of the boy's mouth. As the particles dissolved on the boy's tongue, he realized that he had never tasted anything quite as good as this sugar tasted now. It was amazing. It was real sugar and sent pleasing waves up to his brain, but also something else. It was as though the boy could taste the sun in the sugar. And not just the sun, but he could see the sugar's journey from space to earth to soil to plant to sugar to factory to truck to store to his front door. A story makes everything more delicious, and this was no exception. The boy wondered if he would ever taste anything quite so good again. He removed his pinky from his mouth and dipped it back into the sugar packet, but then thought better of it. Wiping his pinky on his plaid pajama bottoms, he upturned the sugar packet over his bowl of cereal. Sugar sprinkled down, sweetly coating his flakes. Carefully dipping his spoon into his bowl and filling it, the boy hesitantly ate the spoonful. This bite was better than anything that the boy could have expected. In fact, it was the best thing that the boy had ever eaten. As he removed the spoon from his mouth, he chomped slowly with his eyes closed, savoring the flavor. Suddenly, though, the boy smelt an eggy, sulfury smell that usually triggered a jingle about musical beans or magical fruit. But this morning, the smell only caused surprise. As the boy opened his eyes, he saw the source of the smell. His cereal was steaming. Like little granular weights, the sugar was pulling the cereal down to the bottom of the bowl, and, he guessed, causing the steam he now saw. The boy sat transfixed by the sight of the cereal disappearing into the white void. As the last bit of cereal was taken down, a small indentation in the center of the milk appeared. Around this indentation, circles emanated, and the indentation grew deeper. The sugar had turned the boy's breakfast into a whirlpool. Spinning faster and faster, the milk whirled, splashing over the sides of the bowl. As if this was not enough, the milk then turned a bright silvery color, similar to a shiny new quarter. And then the milk whirlpool stopped. The milk, however, was still bright silver and didn't appear to move at all. Not wanting to touch the liquid, the boy carefully leaned over and peered straight down into what had been his cereal bowl. At first, the silver liquid acted as a mirror, and he saw himself quite clearly in the silveriness. But fear quickly overtook him as his reflection ceased being his reflection and moved on its own. A large smile grew across the face of the reflection, but the boy was not smiling. As the boy looked on in horror, a hand and forearm reached out of the bowl and grabbed the boy by his hair. Head, torso and arms, legs and feet were all pulled down into the bowl. Darkness surrounded the boy, and he had the feeling that he was falling. He landed and felt particles fly up all around him. That same instant, the boy found that his fall had knocked the wind out of him. As he gasped for air, a particle of something landed in his mouth. It was the sugar. The boy couldn't help himself, and he began stuffing his face with mouthfuls of the sugar. The boy didn't know how long he was in the darkness or how much sugar he ate, but he did know it was pure ecstasy. Deeper and deeper he ate into what he assumed was an endless mountain of the stuff. Though the boy was so busy eating, he didn't notice. Eventually, a light appeared above the sugar pile. The boy did notice when he began to ascend towards the light because it was taking him away from his delicious sugar. He struggled against the light to try and grab one last bit of sugar, but it was no use. The light had him, and it was taking him where it wanted. As the boy went up, the light got brighter until the boy was blinded. When he regained his sight, he found that he was back in the kitchen, with his cereal bowl returned to normal in front of him. He quickly dove into his cereal with a spoon to get one last taste of that delicious sugar, but only found milk. He gulped down the milk, but it was plain old boring milk. No trace of sweetness. The boy looked out the front door to see if there was another sugar packet, but saw nothing. With much grumbling and anger, he left the kitchen and got ready for school. The school day was a normal one, but it seemed bland and tasteless to the boy. That night, the boy slept and returned to the sugar pile in his dreams. This time, though, he was not in darkness. At the bottom of the pile this time, he saw the sugar pile and was hardly able to grasp the vastness of it. It was indeed a sugar mountain. In his dream, he went again to feast on the sugar, but before he could begin, he noticed a wooden post with a piece of paper nailed to it. The paper seemed to flip and flap in the breeze, but it was not any breeze that the boy could feel. Picking up a handful of sugar, the boy walked over to the wooden post. He did not hesitate to shove the handful into his mouth, but was immediately disappointed that there was no taste in this dream representation of the paradise he'd discovered earlier in the day. He reached the flapping paper, which read, "Do not return here. As required, you have been warned. If you return, any consequences that befall you will be on no one's head but your own. Again, do not return here. You have been warned." Almost immediately, that world began to dissolve as the boy awoke to the "wheep, wheep, wheep" of his alarm clock. More than a bit confused, the boy pulled on his pajamas and went into the kitchen for breakfast. As usual, his breakfast was set out and his parents had moved on to other things. Before climbing his stool, though, the boy looked outside the kitchen door. Nothing. Resigned to a life of tastelessness, the boy sat to eat his cereal. This morning, unlike the previous morning, the boy's brain was full of thoughts. Unlike any other dream he had ever had, the last night's dream vividly stayed forefront in his imagination. He could remember every detail of the Sugar Mountain and each word of the sign. He wondered, if he was being warned against returning to that paradise, would he be given an opportunity to return? He ate his cereal, each bite causing a grimace, as though the boy had eaten something foul. Everything in this world tasted sour and bitter compared to that of his paradise. He was almost finished with his cereal when he heard the screen door slam. Without thinking, he jumped down from his stool and raced to the door. He almost ripped the chain off the door as he pulled it open, forgetting to unchain it. In frustration and with huffs and puffs, the boy slammed the door shut, well, as much as he could, with it only being partially open, uncoupled the chain from its brackets, and threw open the door. And there, on a field of white, in the middle of his porch, sat 5 glorious letters, S-U-G-A-R. He opened the screen door and yelled, "Whose sugar is this?" Without even waiting for a response, he excitedly took the packet and returned to his stool. Soon he was staring into a calm, silvery mirror. His reflection smiled of its own accord. A hand reached out of the bowl and pulled the boy down through nothingness until he was once again gorging himself on sugar in the darkness. In his haste to get back to the Sugar Mountain, the boy had not locked or even closed the kitchen door. Through it, a shadowy figure, shadowy even in the light of the kitchen, glided in. He had long, black hair that gathered around his broad shoulders. His eyebrows were dark and matched the blackness of the man's hair. He was clean-shaven and tall and wore a trench coat that was either thick and the man was skinny, or as thin and the man was thick. The trench coat had several visible pockets and many, many small silver buttons, seemingly buttoning nothing. The coat was as black as the man's hair and stretched down to his booted feet. He carried 2 satchels that emitted clinking sounds as he walked. He walked over to the bowl, still filled with silvery liquid. As he looked in, the man shook his head and said to himself, "I warned you not to go back. I always warn them not to go back, but they always go back." His voice trailed off. From the satchel on his right hip, he pulled an empty bottle and from another pocket produced a cork. With the utmost care, he poured the silvery liquid into the glass and corked it. Somewhere, in complete darkness, a boy had grown tired of sugar, and panic was beginning to set in. Holding the glass up to the kitchen light and swirling it, the man examined it intently for several moments. Then, nodding to himself, apparently pleased with what he saw, he placed it in the satchel on his left hip. It clinked as it fell and met several other companions. The man then strode out of the kitchen. Slam! The screen door resounded behind the man. "Don't you dare let the screen door slam one more time!" A loud and angry adult voice shouted. The man smiled as he walked into the morning sunlight. "Oh, I won't," he thought. "Oh, I won't." The end. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day, everybody. Bye!